Вот сюда.
Troppo larga.
어? собой не ведут.
Как мне было страшно.
Dạ.
Là của em hết á.
Ừ. Що і не планували ж ні. Ну,
в этом не
Увага! При вихваті залишкою
蛮我
这谁
看。
对着你可能那么大。
Хорошо, добре.
Такая пластиковая карточка. Ну сверху, да. Ну сверху, да, кому будет, да. С левой стороны. Оваль, да? Хорошо. А пумповская такая светло-золотистая. Ничего, я просто спрашиваю. Ну ладно, бог с ним, пумповская у нас с собой не было. Ну, такая серебряного цвета. Может в правах, вот памятник в правах. Права сильная корочка. Документы на машину. Права у меня есть. Когда открываешь карточку или корочку, там карточка не лежит. Синего цвета. Так, давай, нормально. Все хорошо. Слушай, ничего не случилось. Просто я подумал, брал я себе карточку или не брал. Не брал. Это ставим. Я положил в паспорт синяя корочка, которая у меня в колонке на машину, и права, которую я часто кладу просто в карман. Там не написано права. Корочка расходная радиация. Радио, с одной стороны, если ее открыть. С другой стороны, права и тут колонка. На месте права у меня с собой.
Такая очередь длинная стоит.
Алло. И оваль. Есть там две карточки, да? Оваль отдельно, пумп отдельно. Хорошо, спасибо. Ну, еще здесь работаем. У меня два паспорта.
же самое, видишь?
Ты купить,
We are absolutely unified as a conference, unified behind the president, unified with respect to the importance, the significance, and the righteousness of the act the president took to eliminate Qasem Soleimani from the battlefield. And think it's very important that following a course of time during the Obama administration when the policy toward the Iranians was nothing short of appeasement, President Trump has turned that around. President Trump has made clear that the United States will not tolerate the kind of Iranian malign activity that we've seen in the past, and certainly will not tolerate the kinds of attacks that Qasem Soleimani was instrumental in for so many years that resulted in the death of American service members. We also think it's very important for people to recognize at this moment the impetus on the part of some of our Democratic colleagues to blame the United States of America is unacceptable. We reject that. As Americans, we ought to be united. And in particular, the speaker's assertion that somehow the activity that's going on in Iran is a result of action that the administration took requires a willingness to completely disregard the history of the last 40 years and the attacks that have been launched against the United States and our interests ever since the Iranian Revolution. So we look forward to the United States being unified behind the president. We look forward to the president's remarks, and we will continue certainly here as Republicans in the House to be unified as a body as well. We are joined this morning by two of our members who have direct personal experience, and I'd like to turn things over first to Dr. Brad Wenstrup to talk about the impact of Iranian activities throughout the region. Dr. Wenstrup.
Thank you. You know, let's make no mistake about this and what occurred in the last few days. This was a defensive strike against a terrorist that worked against Americans, that has American blood on his hands. When I served in Iraq, I had the unfortunate experience to zip body bags of Americans that have been killed, many at the hands of someone like Soleimani. We amputated limbs. We saw traumatic brain injury. I think General Milley said it very well when he said that we would be culpably negligent if we did not act when we had the opportunity. You know, today we have some that seemingly are more aligned with Iranian General Soleimani than with American General Milley. And that's a shame. But you know, this administration, this president, this Secretary of State, this Secretary of Defense, this Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have said there'll be no more Benghazis, there'll be no more hostage taking of our diplomats in our embassies, and there'll be no more taking of American lives. And if there is, we will react. Just recently, we had one of our UAVs taken down by Iranians. We have had the attack in Kirkuk where an American was killed, and we've had the attack on our embassy. Today, thrown on the ash heap of history, is General Soleimani, a terrorist, along with al-Baghdadi, along with Osama bin Laden. And to those Americans killed and maimed, and to your families, you're not forgotten because some justice has been served. And to those who play politics with this defensive action of Americans and American interests, and to those who say that this is an overreaction, it's an insult to the American lives lost. It's an insult to those that have been maimed and permanently damaged, and it trivializes the American lives that have been spared by this action to take out a terrorist that was ready and willing and prepared to act to kill more Americans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Winstrup. And now I'd like to turn things over to our colleague, gentleman from Texas, Mr. Crenshaw.
Thank you. I deployed to Iraq twice, deployed to Afghanistan once, and after getting blown up, I deployed back to the Middle East in Bahrain. I have seen the Iranian threat network, studied it closely. I've seen what their export of weapons does to our soldiers in Iraq. Over 600 killed by IEDs, specialized IEDs that were exported there from the Iranians. The Iranians are experts at surrogate warfare. They create sleeper cells in Bahrain, right next to our Navy base. They stoke civil war in Yemen, in Iraq, and in Syria. They're experts at creating chaos. Now, the Democrats' arguments rely on two false premises. One is that history began with Donald Trump's strike against Soleimani. That is, of course, not true. History began long before that. The Iranians have been escalating against the United States for a very long time, started in 1979. More recently, they embarrassed our U.S. Navy sailors after they boarded a U.S. Navy vessel. They've shot down U.S. drones. They've put limpet mines on oil tankers. They've attacked Saudi oil facilities. They've put rocket attacks towards our bases. And they orchestrated an attack against a U.S. embassy. History began long before Donald Trump finally took action and stopped letting the Iranians punch us in the face. The second false premise is that there is this false choice between doing nothing and all-out war. The president is not taking us to all-out war. There is a lot in between, and we have to be more honest about that fact. We have to set a red line and say that as the United States of America, we will not be punished indefinitely. We have to take action, and we had to respond, and the president did just that. And it's time to be unified behind our president instead of casting partisan stones. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Dan Crenshaw and Brad Wenstrup for their service to our country, the things they did to help defend our freedoms, and to all of the men and women who are defending our freedoms today, and especially for those who died or were severely injured because of brutal terrorists like Soleimani. I want to thank them for their service. And I want to commend President Trump for standing up to those terrorists like Soleimani and saying no longer is America going to stand by and let brutal terrorists kill Americans. Not only killing Americans in the past, but plotting to kill more Americans. Everybody knows his history. It was under the Obama administration where they deemed him a terrorist. This isn't anything new. The fact that he was finally taken out is something that you've seen bipartisan support for, not just Republicans. Go look at the comments of President Obama's Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson or Susan Rice or so many others who recognized what Soleimani represented and that this action was long overdue. And just like when we were in the majority, when President Obama took out Osama bin Laden, we supported that action. It was the right thing to do when President Obama gave that command. Just by the same token, it was the right thing to do when President Trump gave the command to take out Soleimani. We are a safer world because a brutal terrorist is gone from this planet. A terrorist who had killed hundreds of Americans and was planning to kill even more. And so it shouldn't become partisan. It's very disappointing to see some in the Democrat leadership here in the House trying to criticize those actions that kept America safer, using some of the same talking points that are coming out of Tehran, and now talking about changing the War Powers Act to further limit the ability for any president of the United States to defend this country. I would suggest Speaker Pelosi go back and look at the legislation that then Senator Joe Biden filed in 1995 to ensure that a president would have the full ability to protect America, especially against terrorists, people like Soleimani. And maybe he's changing his tune because he's a candidate for president now, but he should go read the legislation he filed back in the 1990s when he was a United States Senator. And so hopefully during a time like this, we can all come together, not as Republicans and Democrats, but as Americans who recognize that a brutal terrorist who killed hundreds of Americans and was planning to kill even more is gone from this planet because of the action, the bold action of President Trump. It's time to be united in that. And then, of course, if you look at the other things that are going on around the world, it's unfortunate that as we start this new year, Speaker Pelosi is not using this majority to tackle the tough issues that are facing hardworking families, like working with Republicans to lower drug prices, to secure our border, to make sure our troops have all the tools they need to do their job safely in defending our freedoms. But instead, you still hear them talking about impeachment. It's still all about a personal dislike of a president who was duly elected in 2016. And they're spending all of their time, even now in this new year, talking about trying to reverse the results of the 2016 election or trying to stop him from winning in 2020, instead of working with all of us to tackle these serious issues that face our country. We'll continue focusing on those issues, and hopefully we can start getting some action and moving on the things that matter to the hardworking families of this great country. And with that, turn it over to our Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you, Steve. I want to start by thanking Congressman Winstrup and Congressman Crenshaw, not just for their words, but for their service, for hearing the call and serving and defending our nation. The resolve of our nation and the resilience of our men and women in uniform and the commitment to stand up for what is right continues to make America the greatest country on earth. Last night was no different. Our troops in Iraq stood their ground, bracing for the unknown. This morning, we wake to the welcome news that there was no U.S. casualties. The President will address the nation shortly this morning, but over the last week, we continue to see under this administration the strength of our foreign policy has made us safer, stronger, and more respected around the world. It's very clear that the President had to take action. For more than 40 years of what Iran has been doing to America, but more importantly, just in the short time frame, from shooting down a drone, from attacking tankers, from killing a U.S. citizen, to attacking our embassy. The President made it very clear, if you would kill an American, we will respond directly, and we did. We are safer for it. I think all of Congress should speak with one voice in moments like this, to send a very clear message around the world that we defend Americans, here and abroad. I hope the actions taken by the majority this week, that they rethink what they want to move on this floor, and that we stand together in a time of need right now. Now let me open it up for questions, comments. Yes, sir.
What more do you want to hear from the president himself in the next hour, or from members of his administration when they brief Congress about the strategy for what comes next? And what, in your view, is the role of Congress in overseeing or authorizing potential further military action in Iraq, or maybe even in Iran?
Well, if it's in Iraq, the President already has all authority to act. The President didn't need an AUMF to act on this. This was more of an Article 2. He was very clear in his actions where he went. I think all of America has to understand, too, there was a moment in time when the U.S. drone was shot down. Many of us thought action should be taken at that moment. I thought the President was correct when he pulled back. He wanted to give pause. He wanted to de-escalate the situation. It was Iran who chose to do different. What did they do since? They killed a U.S. citizen, and they attacked our embassy. The President has all authority to defend us, and he used that right to do it. Today, we'll have a full briefing. We had a Gang of 8 meeting yesterday. I hope all members go, put their politics aside, and walk into that room as an American and listen to the information. I think we should put aside impeachment and have an intel committee that works on intel instead of try to change it to impeachment, especially what has been happening for the last 6 months. This hasn't just taken place within the last week. Iran has been trying to push us for quite some time in a more aggressive manner than they have for quite a while. Yes?
Democrats will differentiate the taking out of bin Laden and al-Awlaki to this particular situation with Soleimani, saying that Soleimani was even though he was a terrorist, but he was also a state head over in Iran. What are your thoughts on that as far as essentially differentiating between these circumstances as far as
More than 600 servicemen were murdered by Soleimani. I don't think there's any difference of opinion. I think the Democrats are wrong if they would even try to raise that issue. And I hope when they go into the briefing, for those who may be new, listen and be educated. I hope they listen to what was planned in the future. I hope they paid attention to what happened in the last month. Maybe they were too focused on impeachment to see what was happening, what Iran was doing to America throughout the world. Maybe they should pay more attention to what happened when the billions of dollars from the last administration was sent to them and where the money was spent. Was some of that money spent and used in military weapons to come directly back at our men and women in uniform? I hope they ask that question first. Yes.
Iran has essentially offered an off-ramp. Do you think the president should take it, or are you calling for some sort of retaliation?
I will allow the president to speak to the nation. I'll allow him to gather all the information, and I think the president had handled this correctly all the way through. I trust his judgment, and I know he's making us safer by the actions he is taking. Thank you.
Do you think Pompeo should come testify publicly in front of Congress about Iran?
I believe Pompeo is not going to, he's going to be there today, is he not? He'll be in front of Congress today to ask any questions and answer any questions any member of Congress has.
But what about it publicly?
I think at this moment in time, the most important thing to do, let's deal with the situation at hand. I think that's more important instead of taking Pompeo away from his job.
Mr. Leader, it's been 3 weeks since the impeachment articles. What do you make of the delay?
I make of the delay by the speaker is just another example of how weak her case is. The idea that she had to rush us, that she had to get it because it was so imperative that it move forward, the idea that she wouldn't move it forward just shows the weakness of the case, and more importantly, the no need for it. I think our focus should be other places, and we've been giving that example. Unfortunately, as she told us when she was first sworn into office, they would govern differently. She told us she had to hurry through impeachment because this year was going to be different. It continues to show the only agenda they have is impeachment, and America needs something different.
So you just wait. We just wait.
Depends what you want.
We just didn't stand close enough. It's going both frameworks.
You've got a bit more space than that. Is that from you?
No.
Is that for you? What kiss was that? Do you see the kiss? Oh, is that your question?
Yeah.
Will, if she Barney wants to wander over for a chat, you see these Benny Hill things? That's really waves as well. Did he kiss her? No, he didn't. No, it's like no kiss.
That was the yeah.
It's so. Sure. Sorry? Yeah, thanks. Oh, probably won't. Can I use my sword? You'll find another ladder because Paul's gone. We'll move past.
Mr. Barney, are you confident of getting the deal done in the time frame?
You got enough snacks?
I've seen like the reverse shot where like you get them like very early in the election, you get this shot and then there's a camera inside.
That's the
Sometimes it's really nice.
Oh, isn't it nice? So I wondered if I used to have someone in there to get the reverse shot.
We do, I've done plenty of interviews, we do go in.
But not with something like that.
It's like everywhere we do something like that. Not really, but it's like the actual. I reckon you should come around this side. Oh yeah, go to the cab.
Hey Larry! 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 Don't really like cats anyway. For dogs. Right, you want to come around here then?
Yeah.
It was actually okay.
It's alright actually. Lincoln in Steels. Lincoln in Fields. It's a home one, yeah.
Oh yes, that's what you said before. You're spoiled because you live in closer to town.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes away. But to everything else as well, like it's like working like Tuesday to Saturday, Wednesday to Saturday. So your days off, they will send you home if you want on the train, but because there's all this engineering work from the East Coast mainland to Newcastle, it's like an 8-hour round trip. It's like for a couple of days.
You've got free accommodation in this.
Yeah, in central London, you know.
Yeah. You won't have that again.
Oh, exactly, yeah. So I'm popping back this weekend, so I've got 3 days. But then after that, they've advised not to travel on the East Coast main line, so I've just said, I've got a couple of friends, some that live out in Richmond, one that lives in Greenwich.
I'm on the way to Richmond.
You're on the way to Richmond?
So that's where it is, that way.
But now I'm training for the London Marathon, I do quite a lot of running, so I'll have to go for a tour around. And
oh, you get to see London City that way.
The kind of warrooms I've never been to, and
you'll soon realise how small this place is as well.
Yeah.
When you run it, or when you cycle it.
Yeah. You must feel like coming in, like, feel I'm in,
It's so small, like, Cabinet Warrooms is literally there. Common Gun is there. It's like, it's no distance. But yeah.
So I just wanted to make the most of it. It's only 3 months, so I might as well. And then 1st of February's my last shift, and then I'm back in my room on the 3rd. So
no, it's not.
I like this. Here to bridges somewhere. Dunstan Social Club.
Yeah, that would be different.
Yeah, can you imagine?
No, I've never been to Newcastle. And I keep meaning to go up.
The thing is, the good thing about Newcastle is it's a really small city, but you're only 20 minutes away from the coast, or 20 minutes away from the countryside.
My cousin's just finishing off a midwifery in Newcastle.
Great. A lot of people never come home, you know, like to study, and they're just like, right, this is it.
My family from Cumbria.
Oh, right.
So yeah, she's gone over there. So she's gone over there. I think she's going to stay.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I mean, know, it's a good place to settle, like you say, there's a good standard of living for a decent price. Just sometimes the only options depending on what you do is job availability. But obviously we're working in medicine areas. Yeah. And Newcastle's got a great reputation for all the medical courses. It's a really, really good one, yeah. So should be sorted. Well, the doctor is one of our own, like it adopted me.
Oh, she's already got a fella, army boy. He's from there, I think, and they bought him a dog and stuff. So I think she's well settled. She's well settled. She's gonna stay.
I was like,
She definitely goes out with no clothes on. So.
The other cameraman for the other job, he was like, he said, "Oh, stay warm out there." I was like, "It's mild. This is summer. It's
It is, but yeah, you guys are crazy up there.
When it's really cold, and you stand out to do lives. It's so grim, isn't it? It's just,
yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, God, even on Malcolm.
No, you have to, I was going to say, I don't think the factory works.
There was only one cold day, really cold day, I think, on the campaign. It's been, yeah, it's probably. I can't remember. Where were we? Oh no, it's down. Well, it's Midlands, I think. It's maybe at the factory that makes London taxis. So that might have been. I don't know where that was. West. No, yeah, west, north, midwest, somewhere. For a reason, but really, like, it has been so mild. We didn't.
I can only think of a couple where the Friday after the election it was really cold in the northeast, and I went to
Friday after the election.
Yeah, so the election was a Thursday, and then the Friday the day after, it was really cold. I went to Blythe Valley. I mean, obviously it was like after the election was almost bigger than before the election for us because of all the areas that turned blue from red.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And Blythe Valley, I went up to Blythe Valley and we were like on the seafront where they've got different coloured beach huts, like old-fashioned beach huts, and they had a blue and a red one, and we did like, you know, the red to blue and all that. Absolutely pizza. Apart from that.
Cars here?
About 2 minutes away.
An hour, nobody knows.
What's that, mate? You screwed up my shot. Sorry, mate. Well, I know an artist like yourself.
It's gonna hit. It's gonna come. Yeah. It's gonna be delayed. I reckon it'll be mild the next few weeks when I'm down here, and then I'll get back in February and it'll just be like an ice blast. And when we had the beast from the east a few years ago, I mean, God, like it was. Oh, it was fantastic. Tyne Tees hired, so no one could get around in the car.
Boris Johnson.
So they hired like
Well, you never know, yeah, someone.
I don't think you got four-wheel drive left.
I know.
No, it was actually my fault. It's been quite a while and I went up the wrong stairs and he followed me.
How far can you go anyway, mate?
Oh, were you?
He's going to come in these seconds and realise I know I was there.
That was pretty. I didn't expect it to be a big light, otherwise I might have done a white balance.
I did say to you, it's lit.
It's not, it hasn't been lit in the past.
Leave me alone.
But the thing is, we normally don't
So when was it? It was last year the Beast from the East,
No,
wasn't it?
I think it's before. It's a lot better than the film. So it's brighter than it.
Yeah, here we are. So I went out as camera lady from one of our reporters, yeah, and it was literally like that. That's how they had to clear the roads. Yeah, it was absolutely. And then I look at that.
Hey, Jackie.
Yeah, sat next to the street. It was brilliant. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
That was the
yes,
part behind.
we are.
I can live in this. You know, it was like Girl Scouts. Yeah, everyone was doing that thing of like measuring like snow.
We did do a tape shall we press it up?
Yeah, it was.
People run up there. People wait.
Right,
the snow's a guaranteed story, and it's just interested in the snow. Even my dog enjoyed it.
You got black dog as well.
Yeah,
that's what she's got.
Really?
Which is apparently
One, two,
It's called
Can we, well, I've just unwound everything. Can we take it back to the thing? Can you say 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Because we just packed everything up. Yeah, we're out of here. Because they really need but CNN were recording it, weren't they?
That's what I was thinking.
CNN should have been rolling on it. So they can.
So
How come Reuters are taking us?
Yeah, we should take that.
Well, Reuters are the agency. We're not
I
the.
love it. I love the little
Are they nice? Are they nice?
It's just amazing, like it's just the right size.
I mean,
and
that's
you can
bizarre
just
that
manage
Reuters
to
are
pick
taking
them up
us.
and,
But
you know,
we'll be
not
back in 10 minutes.
arm
Yeah,
or like
give them
scraping
the
along
thing.
on your face along the road and stuff.
And they should be have been rolling on it.
So
Hey Jackie,
affectionate. They're just like little
we
bits
are
down,
going to be
just
back
like
in the
little
office in about 10
people.
minutes. Is it okay to
Oh,
sort of
yeah,
do it
really,
then, or
like,
do they
well,
want it immediately?
especially the ones that are younger and thinner,
Yeah,
and black
okay.
ones as well.
Thank
to be
you,
honest,
thanks.
a lot more
That's
energetic.
fine.
Used to reform one before he passed away.
It's fine if we do
And,
back in the
God,
office.
yeah, like, you can walk for hours. You wouldn't think. Just time.
1 minute away. Let's
But
get
then
out of
if
here.
you let him just stay in.
War and peace. And the caucus, with great leadership from Speaker Pelosi, is committed to getting it right. Andy, you want to?
Stay in, yeah, you've got to be careful. You're getting overweight. Yeah. You can get like. Oh, yeah. Like if it was like this.
Yeah, that's it, they go mad.
It probably would be.
Go ahead. It was not a missed opportunity, but the facts that are before us at the moment are facts that we'll need to respond to, triggered by the president's actions that many view as irresponsible. You know, Donald Trump may have been an arsonist that lit a fuse that could plunge the Middle East into a catastrophic war, though he's trying to pretend as if he's the firefighter. That's a problem. And we need the administration, hopefully later on today, to begin to present to us a forward-looking vision, first and foremost, to keep Americans safe and out of harm's way, but to do so, as both Andy and Jason have talked about, in a responsible fashion moving forward. Third row. As the Speaker has consistently indicated, it's very difficult for her to determine who would be appropriate impeachment managers to present the House's case in the absence of understanding the rules of engagement and what the contours of a trial would look like. Beyond, of course, Chairman Schiff and Chairman Nadler, who one would think are going to be logical choices and participants to lead the effort. But what we have seen over the last several weeks are the additional disclosure of documents that continue to highlight that the president did abuse his power by targeting an American citizen for political gain while withholding intentionally $391 million in military aid from a vulnerable Ukraine. Additional documents subsequent to the Speaker's decision to hold the articles have come out. That's a gain in terms of information to the American people. And we've also seen during this period of time that a critically important potential witness, John Bolton, has said he will testify if subpoenaed. John Bolton had direct communication with the president about this sordid matter and abuse of power. And we know from testimony from Dr. Fiona Hill, characterized this whole scheme as a drug deal, and the president's main operative, Rudolph Giuliani, as a hand grenade.
So without getting out in front of yourself or resolving issues, can you talk a little bit about what the discussion is in the caucus around war powers, and as part of that, making sure whatever you guys pass aligns with Senator Kane's?
Yeah, let me yield to Representative Kim and Representative Crow to talk about what some of the considerations should be for us to proceed.
Well, look, what we need to be thinking through is what's going to yield actual results here. What can try to move this forward in a way that shows that that there's going to be a bipartisan approach as well, to the best of our ability. But look, I said this earlier today. This is certainly a big part of it. The war powers is important in terms of understanding the contours of what the president is able to do. But what we also know is that there are lots of different avenues in which the president can proceed with different types of kinetic action, that there are no firm limits that are going to be able to completely restrain what he is willing to do. So that is why it's so important that we have this process to bring out and understand from the president what the actual strategy that he is guided by is. And that's something that I want all of us to be mindful about. The reason why we're having this debate about the war powers and what this president is authorized to do is to bring out into the open and make him and his administration explain to us what exactly their goals are, what they are trying to achieve, and what the off-ramps are to ensure that we don't have major escalation here going forward that could lead to war. That is something that I have yet to hear from the administration. That is something that I'm very concerned about, and I need to hear from him, not just about the military efforts that they're engaged in, but what are their diplomatic outreach, what are the intelligence operations that are trying to help us understand where attacks, future attacks might occur. We are not out of the clear. We cannot let our guard down. We know that Iranian proxies and some of their more traditional outlets for violence are still very much operational and could very well strike. So I just want to kind of put this into that broader context of why it is that we're moving forward with this, and why we need to have that transparency for the American people to understand what exactly this president is willing to do and how far he's willing to go.
You also mentioned the practical side of things. How much is the discussion about meshing up with Tim Kaine's resolution so that it can pass the Senate?
Well, look, the idea is that we have something that can be able to pass through both chambers, and we want to have something that can then move forward. So I want to sort of see what it is that we can accomplish on that front if possible. But like said, there are lots of different considerations happening right now, a lot of robust discussion about that, and we'll see in the coming hours and days where that lands.
As Andy just indicated, the starting point here is we need clarity on what authorizations the administration is currently relying on. And there is disagreement within the administration itself, right? On one hand, you have members of the administration saying that they're relying on the imminent threat lawful authority for the strike. Then you have Mr. O'Brien just last week saying he's relying on the 2002 AUMF, one of the so-called zombie AUMFs. Yet just a couple of months ago during Armed Services Committee hearings, you have Secretary Esper and General Milley telling us that currently they are not relying on the 2002 AUMF for any military operations. So there's inconsistency, there's disagreement within the administration. We need answers and clarity from them now as to what ongoing operations are being based on. And then we can start having a discussion about what authorities they need to make sure that our troops are protected, that our number one priority of securing our installations and our men and women on the ground is taken care of, and what the path forward is.
Well, that'll be a decision that ultimately will be made by some combination of Chairman Schiff, of course the Speaker, and Chairman Nadler. His information does appear to be critical, but it appears critical in the context of enhancing what we already know based on 17 witnesses who did come forward and testify, including individuals like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, Ambassador Taylor, Ambassador Sondland, Ambassador Volker, Dr. Fiona Hill, Jennifer Williams. These are all individuals who were part of the Trump administration and confirmed factually I'm going to yield to my colleagues, but that is an ongoing discussion, and we need clarity from the administration as to whether this particular provocative action made America safer or not? President George W. Bush and his administration made the decision affirmatively not to take out General Soleimani. President Barack Obama and his administration, which of course struck the leader of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, also made the decision affirmatively not to take out General Soleimani. Israel, that has the capacity to strike someone like Soleimani, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, consistently made the decision not to take out General Soleimani. Presumably, all of these disparate individuals made this decision because they concluded it would not make the region, America, Israel, or the world safer. So we need answers from the administration. What has changed? Because what appears right now to have changed is that we have more troops in harm's way in the Middle East, 15,000 more troops than 6 months ago. What appears to have changed is that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been reignited. They have indicated they will now not be constrained by the nuclear agreement. What appears to have changed is that the effort to crush ISIS is in shambles, and the presence of American troops in Iraq is in doubt. What also has changed is that Israel is not safer as a result of these actions. They're potentially being threatened by Hezbollah and Iran's proxies in Lebanon. And so I need answers from this administration.
Just to add on this, you know, coming from the work that I did before, when I hear that there's an imminent threat, that is a very particular and precise term. And when we've tried to, when I worked in Afghanistan and there were imminent threats of attacks against Americans, the type of work that we would try to do would be to go after the operators, to go after the weapons depot or the truck that was going to deliver the attack. What I'm left confused by is if there was an imminent threat, you know, certainly taking out Qasem Soleimani is one part of that. But where's the rest of the equation here? Where was the attack against the warehouse depot, the housing the weapons, or the operators or the targeted cell of Kateb Hezbollah or whatever group was going to carry it out? So I don't actually understand if that threat has been neutralized or not, if that in fact was the case at all. So I'm left with a lot of just very concerned feelings right now about that. And the fact that I haven't, almost a week after this has started, still left with this kind of question is on top of it. The second thing I just want to say is that the decision of whether or not to strike a high-value target or a terrorist or some other actor is not necessarily one solely based off of are they a dangerous and bad person who has done terrible things. It is the fundamental question that we would encounter in the Situation Room is, are Americans going to be safer or not based on this decision and this action? That includes both the near term in terms of disrupting immediate threats, but it has to deal with sort of the broader implications. Are we safer if our counter-ISIS war comes to an end? Are we safer if Iran will now press on the gas to be able to achieve nuclear weapons? Are we safer if this gives Shia militia groups greater a reason to be able to target our forces and our diplomats in Iraq and the region? So it is not simply a question about how bad Qasem Soleimani was. He was obviously a terrible and dangerous person. I often call him the most dangerous person in the Middle East. But it has to be a broader question about, are Americans safer now?
Yeah, just to reiterate my colleague's comments, we have threats coming from many people in many places all throughout the world. I mean, you look at our sanctions list and our specially designated nationals list, it has thousands of names on it. And there's a reason why we don't send missiles to try to kill all of those people. It's because we are strong, not just because we have a strong and big military. It's because we're smart in how we use it, and we leverage all of our tools, including economic sanctions, diplomacy, and the strength of our allies and our partners throughout the world to contain those threats. So that is the question, is not whether or not there are lots of bad people out there who want to do us harm. That is well established. The question is whether or not in this particular instance, killing General Soleimani was in our national interests, and it made us safer, and it fed into a larger national strategy, a strategy that has not been described or articulated to this Congress or the American people yet.
Last question.
Very quickly, given the urgency of the situation in the Middle East, do you need to do war powers before you send impeachment articles?
One issue doesn't have to do with the other, and they haven't been joined in terms of any of the discussions that we've had. Thank you.